I am bringing back another old video from the archive because this one is too good to leave buried. This video is about why confidence just isn't gonna stick until you heal your shame and how to actually do that. So think of it this way. This video is gonna be about values, and extrinsic values are kind of like diseased roots. You might be trying to grow this beautiful life, this beautiful tree, but if the roots are infected with this not enoughness syndrome and shame, it's never gonna thrive. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through how to pull those roots and plant new roots, new healthy, clean, intrinsic values that are finally going to let your self-worth grow and radiate so you can magnetize what you want in life.
And today I'm gonna be talking about the biggest thing that's holding you back from feeling worthy. Now, before we get started, I wanna ask you guys to like this video, subscribe, and turn on post notifications because we put out videos every single day. So the first thing you need to know about worthiness is that now, we talk a lot about worthiness on this channel, but we talk about it in terms of Enneagram. Now, in the Enneagram, we've got 3 Enneagram types that have a lot of focus on worthiness, and those 3 are the ones that are in the shame triad. Now, shame and worthiness go together a lot, and typically people who have a fear of shame or feel common feelings of shame typically don't feel worthy. And that's not to say that all Enneagram types don't feel worthy. Everyone can battle feelings of feeling worthy and having fear of shame, but specifically the shame triad battles this more. And now, why do these go together? Well, shame is the fear of social judgment or rejection from the tribe, or feeling like fear of not being enough for other people. And so when you feel worthy, you can't have shame coexisting at the same moment, because when you feel worthy, you know that you're enough. You know that you're enough just as you are, and you don't have to feel that if I'm rejected from this certain thing or have social judgment, that I'm still enough. I'm still worthy. And so today we're going to talk about the number one thing that's holding you back from feeling worthy, and that thing is called the ego. And so the next thing you got to know is that the ego, it lies within our amygdala, and its role is to detect threat and protect us. And I like to think of the ego kind of like a bodyguard that follows us around everywhere. And so the ego has a good role. It is protecting us. It's there to protect us from danger. And the ego at one time, its role was to protect us from danger. That's what it's part of our primal brain. And when we actually had threats in our daily lives, it protected us from threats and danger. But our society has evolved to kind of be less dangerous as a whole. Sure, there might be social judgment, which our brain perceives as dangerous and life-threatening, but it's not really. And so our ego also evolved with our society evolving. And so now the ego detects threat primarily in the source of social judgment and fear of rejection from the tribe. And so the ego's role is to protect us from feelings of shame. At one point, it was protecting us from actual threat of danger, but that threat evolved in our society, and so now that threat is perceived as shame. So the ego's role as the bodyguard now is to primarily protect us from feeling like we're not enough. And so the ego has 2 ways that it goes about doing that to make sure we feel like it's not, to make sure that it feels like we're enough. And you have to understand that when we feel like we're not enough, it might seem like a menial life problem, a first world problem, but our body, our physical response perceives it equivalent to a death threat, like something that is actually threatening to our life, And so the ego has 2 ways that it responds to this. And they both revolve around telling ourselves stories. And there are 2 ways it can tell stories. And now, when I say telling stories, it can be either verbal, speaking out loud this story that you're saying to yourself and to other people, or it can just be an inner dialogue. You know how you have an inner dialogue, the 2 people on your shoulder, or maybe just 2 people sitting across the table, how I like to refer to it in my own brain. But it can tell a story verbally or within your own mind. And there are 2 ways to go about it. It can either play the story up. It can either compare itself to others to make sure that it's worthy by saying how everyone else is less than them, worse than them. I am so much better than all these other people. When I say that out loud, and if someone were to go about saying that out loud, it would sound terrible. You would say, what is wrong with that person, right? But that dialogue goes on within each of our heads at some point. Like, some people can say it often and often, and some people it's quiet, it's a quieter voice, but the voice is happening inside of us. So we can't be quick to judge whether that's so bad for us to say. All of us are comparing ourselves to other people, seeing who we're better than, because that is the ego's role. The ego is the one who's comparing itself to other, because its role is the bodyguard. And if it does that, it can create self-worth from the external world by saying, well, I'm better than that person, I must be great. Now it's protecting you from the feeling of shame. Because if it were to accept that it was mediocre and maybe it's the same as them, then it would have no way to feel like that it's great. Like it would have no way to prevent that social rejection or feeling that they're not enough. And now we have to think about this in context. So I like to think about it in sports, because in sports we do this often, and it's what I specialize in with Flow State Warriors, my program. In sports, a lot of times you'll have athletes who will if I'm a rock climber, we'll go and we'll climb, and let's say fail, even though fail is a bad term to use because we don't really fail. Let's say you fail at what you were attempting to go do. And this can cross over to all aspects of your life. Something that you wanted to do better at, and you felt like you failed. Well, your ego is trying to protect you from the feeling of not being good. And when you fail, typically, you don't feel like you're very good, right? You feel like, I suck. And so the ego's trying to protect you. So it steps in and says, okay, let's see, how can I make myself feel better fast? How can I protect the person? How can I protect them from the threat of you suck, And so it goes and tells a story, and it looks at anyone around you. And this is just one way it does that, okay? So it looks at other people and says, okay, look, you're better than them, you're better than them, you're better than them. Well, obviously, that puts you in a bad position, because then you're constantly dependent and you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, which is going to leave you in an endless loop of, one, your self-worth is outside of you. You have to constantly find other people who are worse than you to feel good about yourself, which is the antithesis of divine self-worth. Divine self-worth is self-worth that's created from within and that's aligned with your highest self.
Hey, quick pause in this video. So I have been making videos for years now, but this is technically a brand new channel. My sister, Isabel, and I used to run a joint channel with our mom, and when she pivoted into a astrology content specific channel, I branched off to focus on mindset and personal growth and empowering you. So here at Be the Hero Academy, me and my mom are on a mission to hit 10,000 subscribers in 90 days and rebuild our amazing community. So if you are vibing with our videos, if this content resonates, drop a like, hit subscribe, and help us grow this channel from the ground up. We really, really appreciate your support. Okay, back to the video.
And so the other spectrum of telling yourself a story can be victimizing yourself. And victimizing yourself is another one that we don't all want to admit that we do, but we all do to an extent. And it's okay. It's okay that we all do it. It's human nature. It's our ego. It's our primal brain. We don't get a choice. Our ego is there. Whether we like it or not, we're born with it. It doesn't have to do with our programming in a way. And so victimizing ourselves comes when we say the opposite. So it'd be if I failed, if I went and did something and I perceived that I failed at it, even though failure is a relative term, and I say, I suck, I'm so bad at everything. And it would be if you continued that dialogue instead of the ego interjecting and trying to make you feel worthy by flipping it and saying, you're better than all these people though. It actually sits into that feeling of I suck, because when it does, it makes you feel that you've had it so hard and you're so great and it's the world against you. And that actually puts you in a position where you are the golden star and everything else is attacking you. And that actually is not what we want. There's a difference here between self-love and victimizing ourselves, because a lot of times, we see this in the mindfulness world and self-care world a lot, where we say self-care is, it's okay, but we can't victimize ourselves, because that's the ego. That is the ego, the bodyguard, not our divine being, not our divine self-worth. When we have victimizing stories, it allows us to feel like, yes, this is all like the world revolves around me. And that's actually what the whole ego function is. The ego thinks the world revolves around it. It is the core of its life, whereas we are coexisting with life, right? That's what our highest self, our warrior self does. And so this is what's getting in the way from us stepping into our true divine self-worth. And I know for a fact that all the shame triad in the Enneagram wants to feel worthy, and I think all people to an extent want to feel worthy and enough for the world. And so how can you get over this? How can you overcome the ego? Well, one is you have to start observing this in action. But the first thing that you can do today, right now, to start overcoming your ego, to step into your divine self-worth, is start choosing what your values are. What are your core values? And the key is that you have to pick values that are not extrinsic and outside of yourself. If you choose values such as acceptance, that's dependent on other people accepting you. And it's okay to want acceptance, but if you choose that as your value, you're always going to have, the ego is going to have to always step in, because you're going to inevitably have a bad interaction where you're not accepted. That's life. And so core values that actually allow you to overcome the ego are core values that are process-based, that are intrinsic-based, that are dependent on your actions in the process of doing something and not on the result or other people. And so a lot of times I like to use the example of accomplishment. Accomplishment is great to want, and Enneagram 3s love accomplishment. But when you want accomplishment, it's always dependent on an extrinsic result. So instead, we change the process to the value to power instead of accomplishment. Or challenge. I want to be good at challenging myself instead of I value the extrinsic result.
Shift your values, shift your worth. So let's talk about it. Where have you mistaken your ego for worth? Where have you been living by extrinsic values? Comment below with a quick share. I'd love to hear where this applies in your life, where you see it, and if this helped you understand yourself better. If you want to go deeper into this theme, into this subject of shifting your values, because like I shared, it's really the root of the problem, I recommend that you check out these related videos that are in the cards here or in the description down below that we have right here on YouTube that me and my mom have created all about shifting your values and the generational self-worth crisis, because these two videos are super helpful in not only helping you, like I said, change your roots, but also understand the big picture of how to get out of this old society where we've been told that our worth is because of something outside of us, because of our parents, because of our successes, because of our relationships, whatever it is, and shift out of that paradigm and into the new paradigm of owning your sense of self-worth, becoming empowered and a magnetic attractor of things, and being the hero of your story, not the victim. So check out those videos. They're totally free here on YouTube on our channel. You can check them out. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like this video with the thumbs up button. Helps this video be seen by more people, and subscribe to our channel if you don't already. Thank you for watching. Namaste.